Hello, folks. Just getting things going.
Sorry. Hello. Good morning.
Hello. How are you? Thank you for joining. Yes, let me turn the recording back on. So we're a little earlier than we usually start, but I figured we could go ahead and start with the kind of the preliminaries. So we usually start our meeting by asking folks who are new if you'd like to introduce yourself, and what you specialize in. That will help us know what to turn to you for if there's opportunities that come up. So if folks want to say hello.
I'm new. I can go. Robert Kelly, VP of Technology Enablement for Liatrio. We're really a DevOps and cloud enablement consultancy. I've been with Liatrio for about 8 years, and we do enterprise transformations. It's really a lot of Dojo, cloud modernization, really all things has been DevOps, and really for the last several years been really focused on things like platform engineering, but it's really resolving in that direction and being formalized with a lot of the help you're doing as well. So just glad to be here, and hopefully just ears open, eyes open, and hopefully be part of the conversation. Thanks. Good to meet you.
Yeah, awesome. We're always looking for stories too. So if you have a story of a platform engineering success or something, feel free to share. Thanks, Robert.
I can speak quickly. I don't know if I've ever joined one of these meetings or not, although I've interacted with some of you before. My name is Blake Romano. I work at Imagine Learning. We're an ed tech company in the US. We do K through 12 education. I'm a software engineer on the platform engineering team. So we've been down the platform IDP train before, using some of the older technologies. Now we're trying to do some migration over to some newer technologies, newer standards. And so it's been a fun process. So excited to be here.
Awesome. Yeah, I've seen you chiming in already in some of the threads. So thank you.
I'll go next. I met Abby at KubeCon, so nice to see you again. Brian Oliver, I'm a principal architect on the platform engineering team at ThoughtWorks. Also have a contract with Manning with several other thought workers. We're working on a platform engineering book, so really excited to get involved with the group. Also, Robert, I think we may have met once or twice. We sometimes do partnership works with Liatrio, so good to see you again. And yeah, excited to get involved.
Awesome. Welcome. Dave,
I guess I could go. So Dave Stenglein, I've been working in the industry since the 90s in systems and software. Did a lot of cloud consulting from about 2013 after doing software consulting. And I quit my job last year to, it turned out, start up a little solo consulting practice around platforms. So I met VJ prior, and I started a LinkedIn group for Platform as a Product last week. And he said, Dave, you should be, and I wasn't at KubeCon. So he said, I should probably be involved in this.
Yeah, you should. So awesome. Thank you for joining.
I can go next. Hi, my name is Christina. I am a senior specialist solutions architect at AWS, and what I do day in, day out, help our customers build platforms on EKS and open source products. And we've worked closely with Blake here to build Imagine Learning platform. And it was very nice seeing you at KubeCon, Josh and Abby.
Yeah, thank you for presenting, Christina, at our booth. I've actually been quoting your slide with the continuum of operator kind of frameworks a couple times.
Cool.
Does anybody else want to go? We like to ask relatively new folks to introduce themselves. Boris, do you want to Go.
Yeah, I'll say hi. Yeah, and apologies, I'm in a public space today. But hi, my name is Boris. I'm a founding architect at Nirmata. They're the creators of Kyverno, one of the kind of governance CNCF projects. And the conversation that I'm like most interested in, I feel like between the working group here and Canoe and like all the other platform kind of conversations that have been happening pre and now obviously post the KubeCon, the one piece that is always kind of left to the side is the, hey, what do we do about the governance piece of this? Like, how do we make sure that this platform does what we want it to do at a scale, and what are the right moves and what are the right considerations to when you're thinking about, hey, there's very different teams that are going to be using this. There are very different kind of needs within it. And how do we make sure that the same platform is able to scale outside of just the technology and the underlying building blocks, but more so from the non-technical people that do at the end of the day contribute to the decision making when it comes to a platform, right? Like when you have the business people or the security team or whatever that don't necessarily have to want to know a brand new stack. How do you incorporate them in and give them a way to also participate in the conversation and participate in the governance of the new tooling that we're introducing?
Yeah, that's awesome. In fact, I'm kind of curious. Like one of the things that I brought up to Abby towards the end of the maturity model is that we don't really have a governance and compliance aspect, and whether we should, I'd be interested in if you think that belongs in there in the long term. Okay, so I think let's go ahead and unless anybody else.
Yeah, I started chatting with
Oh, you can go, Boris. Was that or Marsh? Who was talking there?
No, that was me. I'm sorry, my internet here is being wonky. But I was gonna say that I was talking with Michael about the kind of the platform paper that he's working on specifically around, hey, we should discuss benefits and the policy and all these things because it is in.
Uh-oh, I think we lost Boris. But yeah, we're going to discuss that in a minute. So let's talk about what should go in there.
Josh, can you hear me, Josh?
Yeah, I hear you, Saeem. What's up?
Great. So I think CNCF security, I think they wrote us white paper on the compliance aspect as well. So basically, if we can link that same paper in the maturity model as well, that one I think we can do on our side as well.
Yeah, that's a good idea. See where security fits in. Okay, so I want to go ahead. The first thing that's on our agenda today. So I think we have three things that really we should try to get to. One, to talk about KubeCon and see if there's feedback or insights from folks about how we can do better and what we should do now. We want to talk about the platform as product paper that Michael Luskin has been bootstrapping. And then I put down maturity model. If there's, and I guess that maybe is kind of in the KubeCon retrospective. We'll see. So let's see, KubeCon. What are thoughts? Is there any particular things that people want to bring up that happened at KubeCon that we should learn from, that we should do better, that we did well?
Have we celebrated the publishing of the maturity model? I don't know that we've all met before that happened. So I know QCOB is the most recent thing to happen, but the fact that this got out in the world is pretty awesome, and bravo.
Thank you, Marsh. Yes, that's right. We published this paper, I guess, what was it, 2 weeks ago, kind of soft launch. We made a big deal about it at KubeCon in a few different ways. Published a blog post on our own blog, though not on CNCF blog. Should we be publishing that more? Maybe that's a piece of feedback.
Yeah, let me chat a little bit. Sorry, am I stepping on anyone? I'll go real quick just to sort of reinforce what I met Josh and Abby at KubeCon. Reinforce what I was saying. The biggest thing is really bringing this, you know, more to the forefront of getting these things in front of folks, right? And you presented very well. It was, you know, very inviting, you know, to the community about what platform is and what this can be. And I think really welcoming more folks into the conversation was huge. So that was a big thing for us and what I saw anyway. But really getting into what you're doing with the maturity model and some of the white papers and some more of the documentation, the formalization around these things really codifies it for many folks. And at enterprises, where, you know, I spend most of my time, they're looking for more and more things to reinforce the things that they want to do, or the things that you know, that their teams really want to do, right? So having these things as backstops and sort of the CNCF or the open source model and approach here is just huge because it just reinforces that, which isn't very widely, it's not widespread at enterprises as well. So just, I think that it's big. So I think that just thanks for doing it and bringing it to the community.
Thank you. And I guess let's figure out how we can publicize further. I mean, we definitely need to do a CNCF blog post. I mean, I'm open to other suggestions. Marshall,
I think you do need to do it because one of the first posts in that new LinkedIn group was the Syntasso original maturity model. And this is someone who was just looking probably into the topic in the last week or so. So if you the SEO is still pointing to older material, basically.
Okay.
I was going to say, marketing begins now. It's out in the world. I think we should definitely keep that on our radar. What I want to know more of is, like, with the signals coming back, how it sounds like this landed fairly well in the world. But what do we know about how it's doing? Did we miss anything? And do we just keep turning up the volume on it from this point forward? I presume that's the answer.
You know, we've had a couple confirmations from end users looking over it. So, like, for example, in the platforms panel, we had Adobe and Discover Financial. Both of them are using it to learn from already. Abby and I also presented it to the end user working group here in CNCF a little while ago. Personally, I was actually going to bring this up with the group, like internally at Red Hat, for example, there's some teams building platforms, and I'm going to interview them. I'm gonna, you know, write up 8 or 10 questions, and I'm just gonna start interviewing folks and, you know, trying to learn. I'm gonna ask them about the maturity model and stuff, and try to learn about it, and then, you know, maybe publish it and share it here with the group. That's one thing. I guess that's, you know, I'm not pushing anyone else to do that, but that's like, let's gather feedback.
I think
So
just,
Josh,
I was just saying, just to add to that, I think I got more feedback on the white paper needing updates than the maturity model, but that's going to be due to duration of time in the wild, right? People have had more time to actually absorb it and try and apply it. Like, I don't think it speaks at all to the quality of either of the papers, and more so to, hey, that's now 6 months old, so people have a lot more to go. Yeah, so I also do have a few people outstanding that want to give me more detailed feedback that felt like it wasn't the right time or place to do so. But we're all said from a very high level, it fits everything. There's just like nits around, so which seems to indicate overall alignment, but opportunities as well to improve. So I think we'll want to do the same thing as we were talking about doing in the white paper, which is like enable nitpicks possibly to get added via PRs to a more latest version, not the V1 version, but bigger picture things to maybe be tracked somewhere else for like tracking towards a V2 potentially. You know, what are the trends that we would want to hit? So I think something similar needs to happen for the maturity model.
Yeah, what we ended up doing for the first paper was there was a V1, which kind of is static, and then we created the latest folder, which we've made a couple small edits along the way, like changing the picture, if people notice. So maybe we could do, Abby, what do you think? We could do the same thing for the maturity model, put a static V1 and then just move to latest for edits.
I figure first time we have a change that needs to go in, we'll do that. Well, I was thinking about doing it up front and I was like, you know what, we'll do it as soon as we get a first change. But I do think for both papers, enabling a better catching ground for like big picture challenges to the structure and outcomes of the paper needs to be made more available somewhere. Like, I don't know exactly how. I have at least a few notes in my notebook from conversations from with people that I thought were interesting challenges to the framing of the white paper. These are not things I would advocate we put into a latest change right now. They'd be things I'd like to put into like a working group associated with updating that paper after its, year anniversary or whatever the arbitrary amount of time is that we choose to go until we look for an update to it. So
Yeah, on that, I want to ask you, Abby, what the feedback was on the first paper. But on that topic, here was one that somebody published yesterday, talking about how we use the term internal platforms versus external platforms, which would be a fun conversation. That was a conversation back in January. But do you think that this was a good way for them to start a thread? I mean, I didn't get a chance to reply yet. I'm going to reply there. Maybe that turns up insights.
yeah, I wonder if we do that and we just need some tags. Like if we do like platform white paper and V2 tag where we clearly what I don't want to do is make anyone feel like they're not heard, right? Because I think those are great ideas. They actually posted also a question about the maturity model as well. And I think it's fantastic that they're raising the questions. Whether or not those get fully debated and fleshed out and applied to the paper in the short term versus them being fantastic additions for us to include in conversations as we look to evolve it to a V2, like, are two separate things. And so, yeah, I think we have to figure out a way for people to make sure that they're feeling heard, even if it means that it's not an edit to the paper like the day after they suggest, a change, because it's going to have to go through the kind of working group side of things again. My sort of soft assumption was that we wouldn't attempt a V2 until we'd had enough learning. And my soft assumption on that was that it would be at least a year. I don't know about much more than a year, given how fast things are moving in this industry, or in this specific area. But I suspect maybe kind of gathering steam coming out of Paris or something makes sense to kick off a conversation for like, hey, it's now been in the wild for a year. Hey, we can get feedback on this stuff and we can really make a notable improvement rather than just an edit because there's some typos. Like, I think we have opportunities like this person's comment to make like significant improvements potentially.
I like where you're going. So you're saying spend the next 4 to 5 months gathering ideas of what we might do, but don't try to do it for KubeCon Paris. More, that would be the starting point.
I think platform as a product has a lot of legs left to go and a lot of opportunity there. I think I've added glossary on as like a smaller subset project that also would, I think will uncover opportunities for the improvement on the white paper as well. Like in going through the glossary, we'll be like, hey, hang on. So I think those pieces of work definitely take priority pre-Paris and would give us the time and space to get enough feedback to make an even better stab at V2 for the white paper, the overarching white paper.
Is it useful to have an issue that says this is our plan? Like we're planning to
Yeah.
not update this? Okay.
That's what I'm wondering is like if we create an issue and we gather feedback there, like basically like close issues by like attaching them to that, or if we create a project board, or if we create something that says we're gathering this information and whoever is going to be a part of the working group to update to V2, these are the things that we would ask that you take into account. Whether or not they all get applied, like that'll be up to the working group, but like at least take into account. So
I like your idea of tags or labels, Abby. For now, I can just label them all Ouija platforms at least.
Yep.
And then we can.
We'll take. I think to your point, Marsh. I think let's take offline. Let's create a plan for that, Josh, because I think we're going to need that for both the maturity model and the white paper. Although the white paper may be more urgently, and we can create a strategy around that. And that lends itself quite well to the conversations we were having at the tag meeting in Chicago about how we want to try and make things a little bit more approachable and a little bit more like obvious to people as they join us on where to go for things. And this is an example of a journey someone might take. Hey, I read the paper. Hey, I had some feedback for the paper. Where do I go with that? Like, let's make sure that that's something that people feel like is approachable and available to them. So, yeah.
Okay, we'll work on that. I know that there's a couple blog posts that people started, which I want to review and get in there. Do we want to talk about those at all? I don't think that Matt's here.
I think I missed those. Were those shared, Josh? Or are they?
495 and 496, I think they are linked in the. So one is a summary of the project meeting that we had on Monday, and one is, I think, getting started.
At 495 is sort of under the umbrella of where I say, I think we're trying to improve the on-ramp for people. And that's an example of where we would, once we figured out what some of the on-ramps looked like, we could blog about that and make it a little bit more visible and available to people. 496, Matt has taken a fantastic early stab at it. I do have an open question to him. I know that he's not here right now. So either hi, Matt, from watching it later, or I'll reach out to him on Slack, is what our intentions and our hopes are from that blog. So I think I have a preconceived notion that like the blog would be a summary blog in the sense of like, what are the high level trends that we noticed and some pointers to those trends, more so than like a summary notes of like times, more like a note taking from the meeting, where, because we do have the video, and so I think we have the opportunity to write this blog as like high level point 1, 2, 3. Let's keep it short, snappy, and readable, and then say, and you can watch the video here, which is like awesome that you had that video. It's the only reason we have the opportunity to write a more kind of high level blog post is because of the video. So I'll add that actually to that issue. Thanks for sharing that again, Josh.
Okay, so let's keep iterating on that blog post. That would be cool to get out. I just haven't had a chance to review, but I'll take a look. If anyone else wants to chime in. Anything else? So we also had we had the lightning talks in the project meeting. We had one lightning talk session at the booth. What do people think of that? Is that useful? Should we keep pursuing those going forward?
So Josh, are those videos will be available right now on the CNCF YouTube channel?
We only are posting the one from Monday, not the one from Wednesday. That was too hard to record.
Okay. Good. So basically, like after, I think on the project pavilion, I believe, like usually you don't have a time to post videos in there. So it's mostly around co-located events and the KubeCon talks. So I'm thinking like if there are anything we actually post in the CNCF YouTube channel afterward, or either we can actually request them to give us a spot on the cloud native live stream, and we can speak about maturity model.
I'm not sure what I think what you're recommending, Saeem, is that we get a slot in the, one of the webinars to talk about the maturity model.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's
Okay.
question number 2. And question number 1 is like, is there any conversation from KubeCon Chicago around maturity model ended up in the CNCF YouTube channel? Is there any video?
I don't think so.
I mean, there'll be the panel discussion from Tuesday that is a little bit more. I mean, it's not solely about that, but it's aligned with that to a certain extent.
Okay, so, oh God, so it is already on the YouTube channel?
It's a
Abby?
talk from the conference, so I believe that they're up already. They're really, really quick with them usually, but
Okay.
I don't know for sure. It'll be up this week for sure. They're always up really fast, but
Yes, I saw
think we're
some of the co-located videos are available right now, but which one is actually on the panel talk? Is it App Developer Con, ArgoCon? Which one is actually?
I think we can take it a bit offline on this one. The video is KubeCon Cloud Native Con. It's not one of the pre-conferences. I can get you that video though, and we'll make sure to share it in the working group chat for sure. It's a good shout. Definitely.
Got it. And now question number 2, once again, I'm thinking like we can, at the end of the year, we can actually have a visibility in the cloud native live stream, and we can speak about maturity model in the CNCF. They basically have a weekly webinars.
Yeah, we should do that. We can do that as ambassadors too. They'll let us, so we can just ask. That's a good idea, Saeem. I'm going to do that.
Got it. I will share the link with you on a link for the calendar for these webinars, and basically you can actually block that as well.
Yeah. Okay. So Josh and Saeem are going to work on that. Is that cool, Saeem? Let's work together. All right. So it's getting to 10:30. I'm thinking let's shift over now, if this is okay, to the platform as product paper. I guess a couple things, like Michael, I can let you go. I also wanted to share some thoughts, but do you want to start us off, Michael, with the current state?
Yeah, that'd probably be a good place to start. Things slowed down, right? You know, going into KubeCon and coming out of it. I think now there's a lot more attention now that most folks have moved, or like moving past the immediate needs of the maturity model and getting it out there. So there's a lot more people who reached out and said that, you know, they'll be there on Thursday, which is our next sync on the research side of things, which I'm hopeful for. I think you and Abby, and maybe it's one of the things you wanted to talk about, which is the balance between in the intent of the meetings versus what can be accomplished asynchronously in the work, given how much there is to do. Right now, we're in the place where the last thing we talked about was independently kind of working on what we thought we wanted to get from interviewing product leaders and product builders, like senior product builders in the same company. If we could talk to the leader who was, you know, responsible for the platform initiative and a few of the senior folks who were actually implementing it, what would those two scripts look like at a high level so that we can get into the room and then go through these questions in a more diligent manner to see like what are we actually going to be learning, you know, how, you know, down to like how do we frame these questions and connect them, and what's the, you know, like equivalent question on the builder side to get at the truth of the situation inside the company and not just ask kind of superficial questions and move on, right? Because that's obviously one of the worries is if you don't structure this well, then you're going to get kind of a not a great facsimile of reality of how things actually were done, which I don't think is that interesting to anybody here or beyond.
Okay, so it sounds like so you're kind of putting together the interview framework in particular, which I would really like to see, because I just said I'm going to try to do some interviews.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's what I was thinking. And, you know, we haven't. That's the thing. Last time we spoke about it, we talked around it about how we're going to approach it, and then kind of everybody, including myself, disappeared around KubeCon, and now we're emerging on the other side, going into this Thursday.
Okay. In terms of the paper itself, you know, I spent some time going through it pretty deeply. And one thing that, you know, I kind of wanted to go through maybe with the group here, what it looks like right now, and kind of just align us on what we're working on. I'm gonna go ahead and share. Let me give this a shot. Let me see if I can find share. So I went through, Michael, your doc, and what I tried to do was kind of, here, I'll tell you what I came up with, a kind of arrangement for it, which you're kind of looking at the top here. Here's your here's the doc. I just took it and kind of cleaned it up a little for my own sake. And so it seemed like the first 2 or 3 sections up through about here were really defining what is a platform, what is a product, and what exactly is what does it mean to treat a platform as a product? What is a product mindset exactly? Which I thought those are really helpful things. Then you kind of shifted, and this is where I was trying to figure out. You have developing a platform strategy where you kind of walk through, if you look at these four: current state mapping, the approach, a roadmap, measurements, you kind of lay out a strategy for building a platform. Then you talk about organizational transfer, then we talk about organizational transformation, kind of. So I'm trying to relate this all back to platform as product. So the way I read this section was, you have to prepare your organization to accept your product. Like if there's no buyers, like you need to prepare the market. And then finally delivering the platform, also like what you need to think about as a product. So what I was thinking is, that's kind of, if we think of the first half as being defining what exactly do we mean by platform as product, then the second half kind of goes into, okay, hopefully we've convinced you that you should adopt a product mindset for your platform. Now, how do you go about it? And you start laying out tactics, which are those three things. So first is, like, there I took from your, what you had in there, but I kind of turned it into a bullet list. Develop the platform, so you map the current state, decide, where people and money should go, determine whether to build or buy, create roadmaps. Then in the organizational stuff, again, just copying what you had in paragraphs into bullet points. The reason why I thought this, two reasons why I wanted to do this: one, to kind of organize that last section of the paper and see where it fits, and also this maybe gives people an easier way to kind of add, like what are we forgetting here? This is easy for somebody to add a bullet point 5 and 6. So yeah, I guess I just wanted to share that, like, kind of idea of how we could align on working on this paper. Like, we can move some of the, if the bulleted lists are helpful, we could move those into the existing draft and people can comment there. Yeah, I guess, what do people think that have read the paper in terms of how we can, does this make sense to align this way, or is there other things we should be thinking about?
There's another link that I think is like the working version of this that has a lot of comments associated with it.
Yes, that's this one here.
Yeah, I think it should be there. Yeah, so this was like a rough draft of like directionally where we wanted to go, and like, what is product mindset, why is it important, and how does it play out. There are different ways to tell that story. The part that like the consistent core part is, why should you care about this, and like, why should you adopt this approach to work, and what results will it get you. And then you had it under tactics, but essentially, like, how do you operationalize that, and what are the preconditions for that? That's going into these interviews, those are the kind of things we want to find out, right? Do these ideas and common patterns play themselves out, or where the things go wrong that are kind of the anti-patterns of what we're talking about, to substantiate these things with real world examples. And I think in that process of figuring out, like, what do we actually, like, the paper itself is a feeder for what we want to learn, but it's not the whole thing. I think as we build the scripts, it's going to change kind of what we want to learn, which will then funnel back to what the paper is going to be. So it's not exactly like entirely a linear process from like paper to scripts. But yeah, in terms of actively contributing to it, I'm open to whatever is helpful to make sense of this and how to do that.
One of the structural things I'd bring up is that platform as a product involves a role definition that is very alien to internal, systems and IT type people. And, I have a question from a customer right now. They want to hire their first platform as a product type product manager, and they need help defining what that role is, what the success criteria are, that sort of thing. And it's pretty different in terms of an internal versus external facing product role. And so maybe that's something that we really need to have in there for companies. I was going to ask, like, who are you planning to talk to? Because even though there's even a beginnings of a profession around this, there aren't many places that actually have product management teams. You know, the only ones I can think of are like Google and Netflix. I'm sure there's plenty of others, but you know, even at Netflix, it's only in the last few years that they've done that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good call out. From my vantage point with like where the industry is, it's a nascent role. It isn't well articulated. It looks different from place to place depending on its history or what they think matters. That's why I kind of shifted gears and added that to the research guide. Talking to like product-minded people, like defining what it means to operate in that way, even if your title doesn't match it. Because I've worked with plenty of, EMs or tech leads or architects, but they got the business, they got the product, they understood experience, they understood internal customers and external customers. They were operating in this way, even if they didn't have an explicit product person title. So I think we're going to get more of those people than we are going to get people with, product person.
Yep.
So at ThoughtWorks, when we do platform builds at public enterprises, somebody, can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, no.
When we at ThoughtWorks, when we engage with large enterprises, usually public, and we do a platform build, we actually make a explicit platform product owner role for those engagements, and it does take some convincing. But usually we stick to our guns on that, and it works out every time. So happy to maybe do some practices with you, Michael, if you want, or we can take that offline. But we've done that at large companies.
I feel like the kind of thing that we want to posit as hypotheses. Like, you should have, if you're trying to develop a platform as product, you should have, a PM role or product owner role.
Yeah.
Then, the interviews can disprove it if they do.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. Even beyond like a strict like PM operator role, it's whoever is responsible for like the overall success of this program. I know, like I also come from consulting, so working like there were every company I've ever worked with directly before I worked on my own, we always were like adamant, even if we had to cover the costs, there had to be somebody who owned product, because we knew that's what guaranteed success. So super aligned on that.
The other structural thing I would say is in the business part of it. There's especially something about chargebacks, which I vehemently disagree with, because I think that's an anti-pattern that starts slipping you backwards into like the IT as a cost center model. But the right way to do it would be to promote your ROI, the ROI of the platform. So in terms of the cost of the people, what do you get in terms of a net business value for the enterprise by making that investment? And that's a little, it's very easy to do chargebacks, right? I have my cost of salaries, my cost of services, and I have to charge that back. We're saying, like, as you develop in the features of your platform as a product, the feature teams using it will deliver X amount of value that maybe they couldn't before or something. It's a little fuzzier, but I think it's the space that product managers especially need to fight for in terms of platform, rather than going back and just looking at their costs and figuring out a chargeback. Because if you want to be a member of the business, you need to show your contribution to the overall business results.
I agree. I mean, this is the thing about like the original paper, right? It's a mixture of voices. That's why it doesn't entirely sound like a coherent one person wrote this, which is good, which is like why it's a community effort. Like each part of this has to be examined. On the question of fuzziness and chargebacks, I'm in the same camp. I think like it is inherently fuzzy. it does get you in a cost center kind of conversation, but that's what companies are generally not great at internally, which is understanding opportunity cost. Like they have an incredibly difficult time of understanding the value that's going to be unlocked if X, Y, and Z are done, unless there's like a dollar value that they can see on the ledger balanced. And that's what it sounds like in the paper right now. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, if they've understood, if they've taken the leap to fund product teams, this means you're funding the team. If they understand what that looks like for normal development teams, then they can make the switch or potentially understand what that looks like for internal teams. But that's not common, right? Understanding what it means to fund a team as opposed to funding projects, and this is still, many enterprises are really, orgs are far away from being, moving fully in that direction too. So there's a little bit of that. If that dissonance exists and they don't know what that looks like in general, it's going to be really hard for these other teams.
Yeah, and in the spectrum of all the companies that exist, one of the assumptions is like you'd already have to have like a pretty solid external product facing team. Like you'd already need to be really good at building consumer products, and a lot of these companies aren't really good at that part of it. It's like a mixture of just grit and brute force to get things out into the world. And that doesn't trend, like that's not a model you can replicate internally. And now just like we can somehow deliver things externally, let's do that internally.
I think it's
Maybe
really interesting. Marsh brought up a point in the chat around like kind of a narrower research project around hiring first PM, like what that looks like. I wonder, one of the conversations we had at KubeCon and one of the learnings I had from trying to lead the maturity model paper is like they are big old bites to do these like 8 to 10 page papers on these big topics, and they may not be the right size bites for every topic or for any topic, to be perfectly frank, but definitely not for every topic. And that there might be ways for us to get faster feedback loops. And so I wonder if I know one of the conversations we've been having is like, how do we generate access to the right humans to get the right feedback, to have this be not just community driven, but actually research driven, or research, informed at least. And I wonder if us putting out a community-driven opinion piece, a community-driven blog around a more narrow topic with a call to action of, is this you? We'd like to talk to you, could drive the right amount of feedback loops to try and maybe have that transition from a community opinion piece around, we believe that you need a PM, but PMs are hard. We believe this is what good product management looks like, but it's hard. This is what we believe good finances for a product team of any shape, size, whatever, including internal, looks like, but it's hard. There's a trend here. But if we can write those and get our opinions as a community out in more manageably sized blog posts, I wonder if those could drive the right conversations with people being like, yes, and I can be an end user use case for you in a more formal paper, larger, more formal paper.
It's an interesting
I
idea.
like that for like niche topics like chargeback and showback or something.
And they might come together, right? So lots of people will basically write books based off the back of blogs. Like they start with blogs, they start to like session out their ideas, push, like get feedback on them, etc. So I'm not suggesting it's instead of, I'm suggesting it as a input and opportunity to refine and actually deepen the value of a longer paper by getting the right humans into interviews, getting the right kind of narrow, like getting each narrow focus really tighter and more informed, and then have that feed into it.
If I may, I think that's really well said, Abby. And I think it made me think about how what we're trying to do is tell the story to ourselves, well, the patterns we think we see, because we don't even know what to go research yet, because we haven't identified what we think is common from our experience. And so this seems to be a kind of, for any sort of emerging field, this is how it will happen. You speculate, you observe, you sort of reflect that back, and then you get deeper and inform it with research. And so following that through, I think we did a pretty good job of isolating aspects in the maturity model that, from common experience. I think that's great. And what can we do now to reinforce that with actual observations, and what will we learn through that process is feels like the right way forward to me.
Yeah, and maybe it moves away from this, but when I started this, one of the things that I was thinking about was leaders with authority who kick this off, because are PMs a leading or lagging indicator of this mentality? Because usually PMs at this level won't have the authority to like kick off these things on their own, right? Like you still need investment. Like, and it could be that, you know, you somehow have it, like you don't have a mature platform, or you have like these disparate things that have been running by like a DevOps team, and you have SRE, and you have, you know, just people kind of keeping things afloat, and then you hire a PM. The PM takes a look, they put together a game plan, they pitch that game plan to stakeholders about why we need to take a more strategic look at our internal platform. And here's a game plan of how we might do that to get that investment and support. I mean, that's one version of that pattern. The other is you have somebody with enough authority already to see that what is happening isn't working, and that something needs to change around the way the business is run internally, because we have a difficult time responding to the market, right? It takes us forever to ship. It takes us forever to learn. You know, there's downtime. There's, you know, like all of these very clear measures that things aren't going well. And then, you know, then you hire a PM, or you hire the right people, or you evangelize from that leadership position. I guess both patterns could be true. I don't know to what extent one is more true than the other. I guess to Marcia's point, right? It's early. We haven't looked at enough companies. And so maybe, you know, it would be decently speculative, right now.
That's okay. We could have
Yeah.
that kind of thing in the paper, you know.
I
So
think it's good to be mindful about that, actually. Like, this is speculative. This is research informed. Like that's I think a useful framing for how we consider what we put out in the world.
Big old disclaimer.
Gartner does this, right? Sorry to bring analysts in, but Gartner, you know, they've got their hype cycle, right? And where are we? And people don't know. We're all trying to figure it out. It's early.
I agree. I think that there's what's really interesting about this right now is I feel like, Josh, when you came in and like were like, oh, I want to get up to speed, you started to try and like boil down a little bit to like what is the outline, like what is the high level that you're trying to get across, so that I know that I'm on the same page. I'm speaking as you were like, this is where I think that like Michael, you're at with this paper, and that helped. And then what I'm hearing as well is a lot of like specific techniques that I could argue would fit under some of those top level concerns. And so what the most effective I've ever seen someone write a book was they wrote the table of contents and got agreement on what the outcomes from them should be. And I feel like that's basically what we're backing our way into right now. And we're doing so really in an informed way, right? Because we've got this awesome like straw man of a paper. We've got this awesome like group of people that have experiences across consulting and in-house and all these things. But like if we basically created our what we're targeting for as a paper as like the takeaways from the paper, then we have our hypotheses of what the techniques are that we think we would advocate for in that paper. And those are the things that we can do faster tests on. We can do like a blog post about this technique and like come to a conclusion on as a group on, do we believe this is a reasonable one? Like chargebacks, we already have disagreements in the room possibly, right? Awesome. We can come with our group and have an understanding of that, and then challenge those ideas by publishing that out and looking for feedback on it, looking for people to interview, where maybe we have come to a shared agreement, but we get challenged by community members outside of our working group. Like, I'm wondering if there's something there around this like decomposing of what we're trying to achieve with the paper and getting the bits kind of sorted out.
Yeah, I'm thinking maybe we repurpose. Yeah, it's really well said. I think maybe we repurpose this Thursday and just take a step back and do that. Even to your point, like the fundamental approach to this work, does it lend itself better to, you know, doing this outline? Like, I think no matter what, let's take a step back and run through this outline again so everybody gets on the same page the way Josh just tried to, because we're not. That part's very clear. And then from there, decide, okay, what's the best test or approach for each of these topics, instead of, like you said, cobbling them all together and making it this ambitious, amorphous project that possibly will never end if on the track that it's on now.
Yeah, a lot of these things in this thing, each one almost you could ask, or we could find out, do people do enhancement proposals and ADRs? You know, that we did chargeback and showback. What kind of measures do people use? So yeah.
Yeah, I think yeah, I think going into this for me, like the high level thing was that the value of this approach to work, and you know, that kind of, I guess, that idea of kind of PM as the leading or lagging indicator of that being operationalized, or that mentality taking hold at the right level, right? Because it's certainly very hard to do this work and get the outcomes you want entirely from the bottom up in an organization with no support.
Well, will this paper look different now versus 2 to 3 years from now? Yes, right? Because
Yeah.
it'll be very different, just like DevOps is, and platform engineering has become different in terms of how you implement, who you hire, how you organize around it. So we probably have to accept that what we say now on the paper, the PM will be the lagging indicator, and eventually they might become the leading when the industry changes.
Cool. I think this is a good discussion, and we'll talk more on Thursday. But in general, Michael, if things come up, like if there's a couple topics that you want to debate with the group, like bring them here to Tuesday. And,
Yeah.
like charge back. If that's like a hot topic or something, let's bring it up for 10 minutes and see what people think.
I think generally chargeback, I think there's going to be kind of near unanimous agreement one way, I would speculate. But so I mean, you and Abby brought this up real quick, that like, let's use this, let's portion out, now that this is like the focal point, let's portion out part of Tuesdays to like see where we're at and coordinate. We had 2 meetings, we killed it. It's now 1 on the effort itself. I was trying to stagger them, like we pushed it a week because conflicted with KubeCon last week, but now it seems like this meeting also got changed to a different, to like an alternating Tuesday, or am I?
It's
Is that just
UTC, I think, is the problem. Is that you gave us non-UTC times, which
Yeah, I'm
means
sorry.
that the times evolved. And so I think this one's shifted an hour if you have daylight savings where you live, basically.
Yes, but sorry, not the shifting on the same day, but making sure that both meetings are alternated so people's weeks don't fill up with just like like,
Oh, you know what
yeah.
happened? It's because this week the first was a Wednesday this month, so we have
Oh,
back to
right.
back.
Oh,
Yeah, it's just how it turns out.
okay, that's fine. So sometimes it will happen.
I don't know. Because we also talked about not having the platform as a product paper be a standing meeting, but instead pulling it in
Yeah.
when we need to. So I don't know if that's going to be an issue as much as like pulling it in like, okay, we're going to set one for next week. In like the Tuesday meeting, this is like driven out the need for a thing. Like I'd say
Yeah.
in the sort of like
That was
6 months we did the maturity model, I think we did maybe 4 calls, 5 calls, maybe 4, 5. I'll go with 5 just to go heavy. And I think Josh, when you were reading the white paper, I think it was again 3 or 4 calls. I think I maybe did slightly more for the maturity model, but
I leveraged this call some, like,
yeah,
you know.
yeah, we used this call like 20 to 30 minutes in this call on a regular basis, but then we did specialty one-off calls like again,
Right.
somewhere between 3 and 5 times per paper, something in that range, because there are times when you just need to like hammer in something really quick. But rather than making that the usual, we made that more the abnormal, or like the kind of final touching, like getting past over a hump kind of situation.
Let's call. I guess I didn't clue into that. That was like the pattern of this. For any effort, this was the call to coordinate. So let's do that. This Thursday aside, since
Have this
we
Thursday.
can
We
talk.
need to align
Yeah,
anyway.
exactly. Okay.
Yeah, that'll be great. So I mean, going forward, because the maturity model is done, and I mean, we have a couple other things, but they're in the background. So we'll make that we'll make this a discussion at every meeting.
Okay. But maybe for this Thursday, which obviously is coming up real fast, those that have the bandwidth, maybe just like review the paper, think about what a version of that looks like that makes sense to you at that outline level. And if we come to Thursday with that, I think we'll have a much more focused conversation about where we want to take it.
Cool.
Michael, did you say you also wanted help with interview question development? Because I could probably help you in that area.
Yeah, well, the question now is, what is that going to look like, right? If it's not like the ambitious, we want to learn about everything kind of thing, is it going to be just a very focused, like targeted who we want to talk to and explicitly what we want to ask them? But yeah, I mean, happy to chat just on given your background on platform and ThoughtWorks. Let's chat about that separately.
Yep.
If you create that stuff, Michael, it'd be great. Share it with the group, you know.
Yeah.
I'll learn from it too.
Everything will come back to the whole.
Thank you. Yeah, so we only have 4 minutes left here, so I want to be conscious of that. We did have a couple things on the list, which we don't have to get into deep here, I guess. We don't have time to. Did you want to call them out, Abby, at all, or should I call them out?
Sure. I think maybe I'll start from the bottom because that's the most like tactical. I'm very, very keen to see this translation get in to the website because he's been working really, really hard on it. And I think it's just a really good thing for us to do. It's a translation. This one's into Chinese. I raised a question on it because there seems to be a duplication of also blog posts and things. And I just want to make sure it's sustainable. It's something that we can allow for more translations and that he isn't, as a maintainer of Chinese, isn't in trouble with it. So that's the only question I have on it at this stage. But yeah, I guess maybe that's a call out to you, Josh, or to someone, or to ask you to who would that be to do another review on that. That'd be cool. But yeah, just for FYI for people, we have translations going on. If anyone else knows people who want to translate, I think we would like this to be a pattern that we can follow rather than just a one-off. So quite cool. Very, very cool. The glossary review is something that has been raised a few times during the maturity model. So a lot of times the work that we work on comes out of the larger pieces of work. So as in the maturity model was something that was raised during the writing of the white paper, and that resulted in a separate piece of work. The platform as a product has been raised both in the white paper and the maturity model and is a separate piece of work now. Glossary was raised as something that needed to be revisited. We realized that was sort of thrown together near the end of the white paper, but never really independently addressed. And so I think we're going to try and do some async review of that through like a Google Doc or something else. So coming to a GitHub issue near you, please subscribe to that GitHub issue. We'll make sure that things get onto there, and aim to do an iteration on that. Shout if you want to know more, but if you subscribe to that issue, you should be able to see anything that happens. And then the last one is the platform engineering stack paper. So I saw back got mentioned in the chat here a bit earlier. This is another example where I'm going to be highly suggesting that we talk about what it looks like to do blog posts rather than immediately large papers. I think this one in particular, you can check the issue. We've been having some chat about how best to integrate with this. This one in particular is tough because it is trying to advocate for specific tools, and that is touchy when coming from a working group within the CNCF. That's not the space that we operate in per se. So providing support within tools, yes. Saying this is the tool that will make you a great platform engineer, less so. There are groups that are working on that. So if you haven't seen Canoe, which is CNOE, dash interest is their public channel in Slack. They are taking an opinionated AWS driven stance on that, and they might be a good home for people in our group that also have an interest in that sort of tools driven side of things. So yeah, so I think trying to figure out what we can do to like understand and support the people that are actually like boots on the ground needing to make decisions between tools. We still want to support them without saying here is the stack that makes you a platform engineer. So I was talking to Michael during KubeCon about possibly the first article is why having a consistent stack would be useful. Like what is it about a stack that, like, why do people talk about the LAMP stack still, right? So like, what is it about a stack that is useful, and what do you need to think about your stack, and what are the layers of a platform stack? Let's start there. And then we can start talking about maybe doing a blog or something else where we do a comparison at that layer. Hey, portal layer, here are the CNCF projects in that space, or here are the open source projects in that space. Let's compare and contrast or get people to write about this, whatever. We can start diving in them more deep, but like, let's not start with here is the stack. Let's start with why we're talking about stacks and some of the more high like value, high level things there, not high value, but high level. But yeah, all the issues are there. Subscribe. I sound like I'm a YouTuber now. Subscribe, click the bell. We'll be working on those things, but they are all, I think, much smaller scoped than the platform as a product work that has already been kicked off. So just to call that out as well, I'm not suggesting that these will supersede or take oxygen out of the room on that one in any way. So
Cool. Well, thank you for that background, Abby. Yeah, everybody like and subscribe. Yeah, and I think that's all for today. We're a little over time. Thank you all for joining, and we'll see you online. We'll see you in the papers and in Slack and in GitHub. All right, have a good day.
Nice meeting you all. Bye.
Yeah.